Hey everyone, it's Tom Kradza with another episode of the Your Life, Your Term show. And you know what's hilarious? About 4 years ago, we met, I mean, every year we meet people that tell us this, but about 4 years ago, we met people who told us the real estate market is either too high, too low, like everyone has their opinion, right? It's too expensive, it's about to crash, it's going to go up or whatever, or now's not the right time to buy properties. We get that a lot. And the really interesting thing is 4 years ago, Hart, who you're going to hear on this episode of the Your Life, Your Term show, started getting into real estate. And he's done really well in that last 4 years, so well that he's actually changing his entire life. He's moving from Milton, Ontario, over to Ottawa to be closer to his children. He's leaving his job as a Toronto police officer and moving over to Ottawa, and you hear what he's doing now in Ottawa. So this is someone who just started in the real estate game 4 years ago and is already making a big impact on his own life with the power of properties and income properties in your life. And this isn't to say that it's all easy and it's all roses and stuff. He deals with stuff, absolutely. But the perspective on life and the perspective on investing that Hart has is incredible. We are pumped to share his story. This is a Canadian right here. Actually, there is, Andre, if you're listening to this, there's only one negative. He's a certain hockey fan that he'll explain on this podcast. But this is someone who's just like all of us, who's trying to make his own path in life and trying to figure things out. I love his approach. I love the way he researches things. We're a huge fan of his. We're absolutely thrilled to bring this story onto the podcast so we can all learn from other people going through their own journey. That's what we're trying to do with this podcast. That's what living life on your terms is about. Mastering your own journey through life, living it on your terms, getting up in the morning and doing what you want to do on your own terms. So pumped to have him. And listen, if you are listening to this and you like some of the things that you're hearing from Andre, he started with us at our introductory training class. That's a 90-minute class that we do. He checked us out that way, came and met us through that vehicle, that training class that we do here in our Oakville offices. So if that's something you want to check out, you can register yourself, start your own journey at CanadianRealEstateTraining.com. That's www.CanadianRealEstateTraining.com. When you register for the next class, and these classes are packed. We just had one last night. Every seat is taken, so you do have to register. Jenny or Anthony in our office will confirm your seat, confirm the date and time details and all that wonderful stuff. But you can grab a seat at CanadianRealEstateTraining.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
Are you ready to live life on your terms? Is it time to take charge? Real estate, business building, the economy, health and nutrition, and more. It's the Your Life, Your Term show with Tom and Nick Kradza. Are you ready? Let's go.
Nick, we are recording. Nick, can you hear me over there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Andre,
great.
are you there?
I am here.
Are you here?
Listen, I'm just checking. Say someone's listening to this, and I need to see the little waves on the screen go up and down so that I know that everyone's getting their voice recorded.
We are on.
We are on. So, Andre, keep
Whoa,
the
you
mic.
got like a DJ voice on this thing.
Do I?
Oh
Yeah, keep the
Well, you
mic
gotta-
nice
you
and
gotta put
close,
the mic
though.
up there.
Way closer. Yeah, there we go. Yes, right in front of your mouth. Now say something.
Hello.
There we go. That's perfect.
Oh yeah, you used to work in nightclubs somewhere down the line.
Yeah. Were you a DJ in Montreal at some point?
Never.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. I wish.
Yeah.
Maybe. Would have
Okay.
been good in my 20s.
Yeah, who knows? Listen, we have a lot of things to talk to you about. First of all, we're going to open some tequila. I'm going to have some chaga mushroom tea.
Okay.
Because I've had a long 2 days.
I hear
and
that.
I can't do the tequila because right after this, I'll be speaking for another probably 90 minutes or so.
Okay.
So I don't know if tequila is appropriate, although this tequila that you're about to enjoy is Don Julio 1942. I don't even think you can buy this in the country of Canada right now because LCBO seems to carry about 10 bottles in the country total at a time. And I don't think they've had it for a long time. It feels like I haven't seen it.
I used to stock their kind of stock online, stock their stock. And my understanding is they're not even carrying it anymore because it's off the site completely. It used to be there. But so when some bottles came in to a couple of LCBOs around here, we went and we kind of cleared them out because we're huge tequila fans, but it's just a little fad that we're on. But it's pretty good. It is good stuff. Are you serving it to them nice and warm though?
Yeah. That's
it is
the thing
better
I
a
was
little
just
bit
about to tell
chilled.
him.
Yeah,
It really is a little smoother when it's chilled.
Okay. Well,
But this is good.
But it's
quality.
still pretty good.
I'm not a tequila expert.
Oh, this
but
is great.
I've
I
been
didn't
listening to you talk about your tequilas for so long that I'm going to enjoy this.
This
one.
tequila is some of the best tequila. I mean, when you in downtown Toronto, if a restaurant has it, you're paying at least $20, usually $30. I think
Yeah, I was going to say 25 to 30 bucks
Greenwich
a
Village
shot.
in Manhattan, we paid I think we paid $30 or $50, something ridiculous. We got there. We were in New York, and we looked at the menu, and we said, "Oh my gosh, they have Don Julio 1942." And then we looked at the price. We're like, "Oh, forget it. We're not going to pay that."
Yeah.
And then we had a couple other, I think,
Couple
margaritas.
Yeah, we're like,
And then,
let's
oh my
bring
God, let's get the Don Julio.
Bring the bottle.
So there you go. You know what? You don't have a chaser of any sort.
I don't
You
need
don't
a
need
chaser.
it. No.
No, you just sip it. You don't have to. It's not like you have to take that as a shot. You could just sip it. Let's see if you survive. Here he goes. He's having it.
Whoa, you're just...
Well, there we go. Oh,
It does.
oh,
It is
you
smooth.
took that pretty easy.
It's actually very smooth.
Wow.
I expected tequila to be like, you know, when you're
Well,
16,
normally it is,
you
yeah.
like grab bad
Yeah,
tequila.
because you're trying to drink the worm.
Whoa,
That's what-
well, it's gone.
It's gone.
Andre's serious. So listen,
Really good, actually. It's smooth. Usually,
it's if it's
Yeah.
and if it's cold, if I serve that to you
Yeah.
cold, which
Oh,
some
then
tequila
it's
drinkers think
dangerous
that.
because then you're just like, wow, this is really good, and it's
I'll be
becomes
calling
a
an
problem.
Uber to get back home.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, if you're taking Uber, you could just keep drinking the bottle. Here. But
No, no.
Listen.
Thank you. I know you just cracked this bottle open, so thank you very much for letting me be the first one to try it.
No, well, now that you had that one so quick, we're gonna have to pour you another one in a second. But listen, this Don Julio, some people will think it's blasphemy if we serve it to you cold, because that quality of tequila, people think you should be just drinking that nice, straight, just like it is, room temperature, so you can enjoy the
I think
flavors.
they're okay with it chill, like even in Mexico, because we were just there for someone's wedding,
Yeah.
and I think they're okay with it chilled. But if you like freeze it, it just takes away all the flavors. So they're like, whoa, no.
There's just
what are you
no
doing?
bitter, like that aftertaste.
Yeah.
No chaser needed.
You
with
know,
this.
I knew I liked you, and now that you share this and this about the tequila, I'm just liking you even more.
Perfect.
But listen,
Why don't you make him a coffee and see what he says about your coffee
listen,
too?
it's one step at a time because we don't have the good coffee machine in the office. We have an espresso machine, which I figure it's tainted with, I think, still some opioids of some sort. Anyway,
I'll have to come back to the new office and try it.
yes, because we're gonna have a proper machine. No, but there's something I wanted to mention that we like you, but then on the flip side, there's another side to the coin because you walked in here and you kind of laughed. You kind of laughed a little bit, and you said, "Oh, how about those Leafs, eh?" And then
I said I was going to come in wearing my Habs jersey on, but I thought that would not be appropriate.
You thought
Yeah,
because they didn't make the
Because
playoffs that it just...
I just thought because your team lost last night, but because my team did not make the playoff either, obviously I can't laugh.
Yeah,
Too much.
I'm just getting over it now. Ask Nick. I was fuming last night.
Oh my God! I should read you the 45 straight text messages about Mike Babcock that Tom sent in.
I was losing my mind. I was losing my mind. I was losing it with like 11 minutes left when Babcock didn't do certain things on the ice there. I was losing it. I was out of control.
I think I can be neutral on this. I think the Leafs might be good in a few years. They're still young, and they need defensemen. I mean, they just suck defense.
Yeah,
They
we're missing a bunch of.
It's funny because it's 2 weeks ago. If everyone was expecting them to get crushed in 4 games.
No, I called
straight.
the Leafs in 6.
Yeah, but everyone's saying they'll get crushed in 4 games, and everyone's had resigned themselves to them losing. Then they make it to a game 7, and they got beat pretty handily. Few giveaways. It was their worst defensive performance of the series, right? But then everyone's like, oh, that I can't believe it, this and that. I'm like, well, 4 weeks ago, no one gave them a shot to even win one of the games. They said Bruins were just going to beat them up the whole time, right? And they gave away 2 games at home. All sorts of problems, right? But they did give away, and not just lose them, they actually beat themselves and gave those ones away. So, but last night they lost fair and square.
Look at the first round, though. All those guys, all those
It's
teams,
crazy.
like,
I know.
So
unbelievable.
Tampa was.
But tell me, how does? Sorry, I'm just straight up interrupting.
Sure.
How does somebody become a Habs fan? Because you're obviously born in Montreal.
Yes, I'm born and raised in Montreal. I moved to Toronto.
Keep that microphone right in front
I moved
of
to
you.
Toronto 14 years ago, just short of 14.
Okay.
I got a job here. I was 23. I had nothing. So I was looking for some action. I was a police officer in Toronto for 14 years.
So Toronto Police Force.
Toronto Police Force.
So you applied for the Toronto Police Force from Montreal while we were living in Montreal?
Yeah.
Why? Like, why not apply there?
So before all this, I used to be a hockey player, and I was not naturally good, but I was good enough to make it to the QHL and that kind of
That's
caliber.
pretty good,
So
yeah.
You're better than the men's league C division that we played.
I make it good at hockey. It was a good time. But the problem with hockey is that if you make it to that level, your school goes down the drain. And I couldn't get into Police Foundation in Quebec anymore because of that college hockey couple years that I had gone through. So a friend of mine had gone to Ottawa and studied police foundation at Algonquin College. So I followed suit. I did 2 years there, and then Toronto was starting this huge hiring process. 23 is really young to be hired as a police
Sounds
officer.
like it.
Yeah, super young. I was one of the youngest, super lucky. And yeah, it's been quite the 14 years, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, so you came straight to Toronto, into the Toronto Police Force right away?
Yeah, I moved in with my backpack, and they gave me a...
Okay, but you there's one thing before we go further on that. You said your middle name's Thomas, which made me pause for a second here, because Thomas is not a French name.
No.
Then you went on to say that your father is English.
Correct. So my dad's English.
So he's a Habs fan?
Well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
He's probably one of the reasons why I cannot cheer for the Leafs, correct? He'll take me off the wheel.
Yeah.
We don't want
it.
that.
Yeah,
So,
got
no
it.
Leafs. No.
Got
So my dad's English. My mom is French. Grew up in a French environment. Went to French school all my life. My dad was the only English aspect, huge one, of my life, which allowed me to come to Ontario with a really thicker French accent. 14 years ago, I didn't know how to write properly. I still kind of don't write that well.
No way.
And
I would have never thought that about you.
No.
Yeah, good for you. You managed to buy a bunch of real estate without writing, so that's good for you.
I pay people to do stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in a second. So you come here at 23, you come into the Toronto Police Force. The cool part is, I don't think we've been at a TFC game together.
No.
But you said you were at some TFC games working.
Yeah.
And we're big TFC fans. That would have been
Correct.
cool if we kind of ran
I
into...
have been trying to look for you folks, but
It'd be cool if we got drunk enough and did something that you had to come kick us out. That'd be fun.
I would have looked after you folks.
That'd be a good story.
But, yeah, so I transferred, and I used to work that area where the TFC plays, the CNE grounds. Before that, I was northwest of Toronto, just south of Jane and Finch. Super fun.
I mean, busy though, no?
Like,
There's
literally
activity
super
going
fun.
on.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
I would not trade my policing career at all. And then, policing brought me into buying a house when I was 25 to live in, who brought to the next house, and then I found you guys.
When you were doing police work, mostly domestic calls? Like, what's the number one call for police force? Domestic disputes?
No.
What was
I mean,
it?
it's there is a lot of domestics, but I don't know if there's like one call more.
Oh,
There's,
it's just
there's a lot
everything.
of mentally healed person type
Oh,
of call
got it.
right now,
Okay.
like crisis calls.
Okay.
The last probably 5 years, mental health was like
Oh,
the
really?
big subject of society, I think.
Okay, got it. So you're getting that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Huh.
absolutely. I got into this the last year. I was a mobile crisis. I used to work with a nurse, a mental health nurse, and we would just do crisis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's tough work, man. That's good for. I mean, you're serving the community like that. No, listen, you're about to brush it off. That's tough work. Somebody between fire. I just think if you're a fireman, a police officer, those types of paramedic, all these types of roles, when you're a first responder like that, that's tough work.
It just after a while, I find it gets to you. After I'm still young, but the 14 years kind of it changes the way you think, how you see people a lot of the time.
Yeah, it makes.
I've heard some stories from other police officers that have worked in Toronto, and it's the couple stories that I'm like, it's always the stories involving kids that really break my heart. And they told me a couple stories, and to deal with that type of stuff would be difficult.
God doesn't happen too often.
Yeah.
Like I've they mark you for life. Like I can tell you every dead child I've had to deal
Oh,
with.
geez, I can't even imagine.
But it's not a monthly based. It kind of
pull the mic. Pull the mic.
It's
or
not,
turn it. Like you can pull it around if you want to sit sideways. You can.
So it's not an everyday. No, there you go. It's not an everyday kind of thing. So no, it's well balanced. Policing is great. Really self rewarding. It just takes a toll on your mental health as well.
Yeah,
so,
I believe that.
So that's why at some point I wanted to do something else and discovered you folks through 4 years ago now. I've been part of.
We
Rockstar.
just started spamming your email address until you got here.
No, never.
When did you? How did you find us?
I Googled.
Googled and
So
we came up.
when you start, I was that guy. As I see everybody here, how they start, they're overly excited. They read everything. They just
That's how we started.
They absorb everything.
Yeah.
I was on podcasts, name it. I was reading it, but it was all U.S. based mainly, or country wide. Correct. I was looking something more specific to what I wanted to do in my community, we'll say, and Rockstar popped up on one of my search, and then I came to your Fast Start or introduction class, I actually remember talking to you, Nick,
Oh yeah.
because your intro was like the RTO, and I wanted to do everything but the RTO. Like I read your book, obviously. Like I downloaded the book.
RTO meaning rent to own.
The rent
so
to
you
own.
wanted to do everything except rent to
Correct.
own. Yeah.
So because when you read your book, if you change the word rent to own to buy and whole or flip,
Pretty much.
it
It
works.
all- it all applies.
It all
Yeah, yeah,
applies.
yeah.
So I'm like, and I remember I'm like, listen, I want to do this, but I don't want to do an RTO. Can I still join Rockstar if I'm just gonna buy and hold? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I went to the corner, got money, and paid my membership.
No, that's right. You told me that again. You went outside and you got some cash
the
at the
Esso
bank
there
machine.
at the corner
Yeah,
store.
yeah, got it.
And,
yeah. That was only 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, why were you thinking about real estate? Like, were you thinking about, like, what's the frame of mind? Were you thinking this is going to be some quick and easy money?
No,
So
no.
what was your frame of mind when you thought about real estate?
So 5 years ago, I separated from my first. Well, I was never married, but from my first common law, I have a child with her. And when we separated, I was living in my house here in Milton, and there was equity that had been built in it just by fluke, really. And I started looking into it, and I'm a bit OCD where once I get into something, like I'm all in.
Tom's nodding.
I'm
you
nodding.
can
Yeah,
relate,
I
right?
get that.
So I started looking, and I went through a bit of a process to open a Tim Hortons because I thought I had a bit of that equity to do it. I met somebody, and I needed a partner. You can't open a Timmy's by yourself, I was told. So that idea went on that was gone. So I was looking for something to do long term for my kid because I'm always worried something's going to happen. This job, I've been injured. I've had like 7 surgeries. And
No way, from the police force?
no, 4 from the force and 3 from hockey.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
All over your body?
Yeah. So I get those moments where I get worried for my kids, and I'm like, if something happens, I want to make sure my kids are well provided for. So I went from the Timmy's. I met a farmer. I thought maybe I'd go buy some farmland. I didn't want to be a farmer, but I wanted to own farm
Land.
and
I hear
like
ya.
rent it
Yeah,
out.
totally. Yeah,
No idea.
Yeah,
what
we
I
all
was-
have those ideas. Yeah.
So I drove to Morrisburg, and I met a farmer. I sat down. I bought my bottle. I just talked to me for an hour. I like I said, I grew up in the city, so farming for me is just not my alley. It didn't make sense financially. Like from my understanding, if you're not born and you're like a multi-generational into farming, you're not making money into this. So I was still stuck. I had a bit of equity and I didn't know what to do, and I was looking for security for my kids. And then met you guys, my coach. I actually.
You work with Mark Grinnage on our
I work
team
with
here,
Mark.
who I've known since grade 1.
Yes, you guys re-met later on in life.
Yeah.
And I was with him for a full year before I bought my first property. And I told him, I said, listen, this is a 1 year. I need to study it all. I need to understand it. Like for me, that kind of money was everything I own. It's not that much,
Of course.
but it was everything I own. So that's how it started. And Mark was amazing. He guided me. We did a full year, and then boom, I bought my first house.
Where did you buy that one?
Hamilton, Mountain.
It was not a rent to own, or it was a rent to own?
No.
Oh, so we didn't convince you to do a
No.
So what did you get? A straight rental kind of
No,
thing?
they're student rentals.
Oh, student
So
rentals by Mohawk.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I picked my first one. I mean, we're going back 2016, multiple offers.
You thought you overpaid?
Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah,
Absolutely.
of course. Yeah.
We were-
Everybody who buys thinks they overpay.
There was 13 of us bidding on it, and I remember they were asking 360. And at the end, you go over and over, and I'm like, Mark, are we going to argue for 10 G's? So I'm like, just go 430, because everybody's going to stop at 4. I'm like 430, and obviously we got it. So I obviously overpaid.
Do you know how rare you are to? No, but I know what you just said. You obviously overpaid is what you just said. But in my life, I believe if you know how to make money with an asset when other people don't know how to make money with that asset, you can afford to pay more.
But I would have never done that without my year here listening to the Rockstar and the conferences and all that. Because
got it. And I know some people listening to this are going to think that's crazy, what I just
probably.
said and what you did.
Probably.
But we've been there ourselves.
But it got me in, correct? So there's probably still people trying to get in, and they're not in.
I was just going to say that, like the thing, like, why we're going to argue over 10 Gs, that one is because it's not like 10 G's out of your pocket.
No, exactly.
Right? You're putting a small sliver of that as a down payment. And if the numbers still work,
Yeah.
right? But so many people emotionally, they'll get
Yeah.
caught up over that 10th. And I'm not saying $10,000 is no money, but when you amortize $10,000 over 25 or 30 years,
It's
it's
nothing.
it's peanuts every
Peanuts.
month, right? So it's but it got you into the game. And I mean, I don't even know how this one's worked out for you, but
Amazing. I still hold it.
Yeah,
I'm actually going through a reno. I'm going to make a duplex using people from Rockstar. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention people.
Yeah, of
but-
course.
Okay,
Anyone
so
you want.
Andy's team.
Okay.
So
And so you're going to duplex it for students, or now?
No,
now
just,
you're going to go single family, kind of like a family upstairs and a family downstairs.
Correct.
And
so,
what,
but just back to this point though, for a second, the opportunity cost, like that 10 grand, if you're like you said, maybe something changed out the week later and you couldn't get a chance to look at properties and you didn't get into the market.
Yeah.
What was the opportunity cost if it was that 10 grand
sure.
amortized over 25 years if you didn't get it, right?
Yeah, and that's how I saw it. Like Nick, you were saying, like 10 G's over 30 years is what, $20 a month.
I don't even think it's that
maybe
much.
not.
Yeah.
So people are losing. You know, like I'm not seeing the difference. And I got my first house, and it was impossible. We went through.
Especially
Crap.
that time.
2016,
It was tough.
2016.
We
that
did
was
17 properties to
Yeah.
find maybe 2 that looked okay. To
It's funny because some investors, when they meet us and they say, okay, let's get a property, if we tell them to go over price, which we don't tell them at the beginning, because
Yeah.
they always think, oh, you're those people. You're just trying to get
trying
a
to make money.
sale. You know, and
Yeah.
we're like, no, we're trying to get you into the market because we know how to make money with this particular asset.
No,
we just
for
want you to get in, right?
I think what people are worried about, like me, like I'm not born in this environment. It's just until we get to know the
Totally.
people we work with.
Sure.
Which is normal.
You know, you do think like maybe they are trying to sell me something. You know, like I mean, it took me 4 months to look into you guys before I was fully convinced, and then I had convinced my dad.
You know how many
My father
times-
came to the last event actually.
That's right. I remember that was so cool.
correct. Super impressed.
So cool. You know how many times we used to look up Tom Karadza, Nick Karadza scam? You know, like we were like, because people were searching us, and we used to do our own search engine optimization work on our
Yeah.
websites, and we would see that term come up. And Nick, remember way back on one of our websites, I'm like, Nick, look how many times people searched it for a scam
Yeah.
this month. But it was normal because people are checking us out. I would have done the same thing if you were doing this and
No,
I was
for
checking
sure.
you out.
For sure,
Right?
For sure. But it's the best thing. You guys were, and this is why I stick to you folks. You guys were super honest, super open, and I was willing to join the VIP on my second day, and my coach was like buy a house.
Yeah,
you know?
Paul,
Like, just
yeah.
just buy a house, and then the next year I bought my house, and boom, then I joined the VIP because it made more sense. You know, like it was a lot of money in the first year when I had no revenue. So I knew there it wasn't a scam, correct? So you could have scammed me in for that extra,
Totally.
you know, and not at all. So
And then so
we do
after,
the opposite. We actually don't even talk about that most of the time. When people meet us, we don't even talk about the other VIP program. And people eventually come to us. They're like, "Hey, what's this VIP thing?" We're like, "Oh yeah."
that's what I did.
They're
I'm
like, "Are you hiding it
That,
from
that-
us?"
you know why? You know
How
why?
do I get into
You know
this
why?
thing?
That VIP program was started by a member. One of the first members came to us and said, "Hey, you guys are growing a little bit. I want to hang out with other people who are taking action.
Mm-hmm.
Can you organize some events and dinners and stuff where we all get to meet each other?
Yeah.
And can you guys just put it together? Tell me how much it's going to cost."
Yeah.
And then we're like, "Okay, I guess this is what we could do." And that's how it was born. It was born from a Rockstar member
I
saying,
meet my best.
"It's become a really good
networking-
group. It's become a
absolutely.
really good group."
Just chatting, the
That-
best group.
Yeah. Okay, so then you get that property. Do you go? I don't even know your whole story. You told me, and I guess I'm getting really old at 46. But you go on to buy another property.
Correct. So my goal was to buy. So I bought my first property. Technically, it's inside a corporation. So again, I use Cherry and everybody Rockstar related. I've used them. I still use them. So I've incorporated myself. I went inside a corporation. Technically, that's my oldest son's home. So
Cool.
I bought him a house. Took a picture. He owns a house.
Very cool.
Had a second kid. Bought a second house. Took a picture with him.
This is with the new girl now.
The new girl.
Are you married to this?
No.
Common law?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I guess
Okay.
common law.
Got it. Okay. If I'm asking too much, you say,
Yeah.
Tom,
No,
shut
no,
up.
no,
You
no,
say,
no,
Tom,
no.
shut up.
You know, I'm
Shut
always, I'm not always politically correct. So I'm always worried I'm going to say something I shouldn't.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
just
Got it.
You got to be careful sometimes.
So how old is the second now?
Just short of 3 years old.
Awesome.
So I got a 6, a 2 3/4, and maybe a new one on the coming.
Yeah.
We'll
Very
announce
cool.
it.
Very cool.
We found out like 2 days ago, so maybe I shouldn't
That's
say this.
very
But
cool.
It's okay.
Well, you're saying it, so you
We
can
told
tell us.
people.
Yeah, okay. So you bought the next property. Is this for your next child? Then did you do the same thing? Take a picture of the house?
Well, no, because that was mine.
Okay, got it. Oh, okay. Got
When
it.
I bought the third one, so I closed last December on my third one. It's a straight duplex, secondary suite, whatever, in St. Catharines, no students. That was ours.
Got
I'm
it.
like, the kids are good. What about us? And yeah, now I don't have a house anymore. I guess that third.
So you
kid's
said
gonna
no.
take it.
Was your second one? I missed what you said. There was a second property, a student rental property. As
Correct. The second, just beside it, like
Okay.
you could almost throw a
Well?
stone.
Is that
to
one?
It.
Are you keeping as a student rental
Yes.
property? That one you are.
So that one will stay a student.
Okay.
The
How many bedrooms in that one?
6.
6 bedrooms. You're renting them out for probably around what, 400,
Five.
500,
5 plus utilities.
5 plus utilities. That's
Yeah.
what we're at by Mohawk. 5 plus
Yeah.
utilities. 500.
The best. I got the best students. They look after my house. They have a garden in the back. They've painted it.
Yeah, awesome.
Number one. My first property, the one that I'm converting right now, also has a detached garage that I'm renting $200 a month apart from the 6th bedroom.
Who's parking there?
He's,
Sorry, as storage or is actually for a car?
No, it's for a car.
Okay.
Somebody who has a summer car is putting a Subaru STI in there. He works down at the St. Joe's Healthcare Center.
Awesome.
So same thing. I brought him a bottle as a thank you because he's been there for 3 years. I've
At
never
$200 a month?
Yeah, I've never raised him. He's never asked for anything. So a couple months ago, in November, I just brought him a bottle. That's what I do. I bring bottle to people. I say thank you. Like they're making me so much like good money.
Yeah.
Like
good for you.
what's a thank you bottle?
Okay.
So yeah, that's really good deal.
So third property, and then you stop now.
Well, the last one was in December. I'm not gonna lie, it's getting harder and harder to get mortgages.
You know, I just want to address this for anyone listening to this because you're right. You're right. It is, and it's like I think when you get started, you don't know. You have no past history, so you have no past context of how it was before. So you just think it is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, here's what I have to do to buy a property, and it doesn't look. It might look hard, but because you don't have that context of historical perspective, you don't think it's really hard. You're just like, oh, this kind of sucks. I have to save up for a down payment, or
Yeah.
No, and you
for
just go
sure.
and do it. But then
sure.
after you're in it for a little while, and the game changes on you, maybe prices change, mortgage rules change.
Yeah, that.
You now have context where you reflect back on what you used to do, and you're like, it's so much harder now because people that we've been working with since 2006. I'll tell you, 2006, 2007, Nick and I were working with some people who bought properties in the Hamilton Mountain for zero down at $195,000. Can you believe that? For zero down.
No,
and so they reflect back
Yeah.
going, wait a second.
Before my
You're telling me
days.
someone's buying a property. So your example, what did you pay for that first property on the Hamilton Mountain 260? You said $430. You're telling me someone's buying a property up on the Hamilton Mountain by Mohawk for $430. I remember when those properties were $192,000. You know, so
for
everyone
sure.
has that context, and I'm calling that out on you just because you should know that's something that can hold you back to going forward.
Yeah.
And
You
have to be
hear all
you-
the time, you know, the magic number is 5, you know, up to 5, you're good. After 5, good luck. I'm like, I mean, me and we make good money. We make a good salary, 2 officers.
Yeah, but that
How does the people making minimum, like, I don't understand how they buy a house. Because if I'm having a hard time with our income, like,
You're right.
it must be super hard. Like all those rules that are supposed to be helping people are really making it hard for the first time buyer. Like I'm not suffering, but you know, buddy,
They're
who's-
destroying the first time buyer.
look,
They're
we,
destroying.
we've seen the tenant pool. I think I just writing about this someplace? For some reason, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but we were the tenant pool in the last 2 years since they started this, or last year and a half. The number of tenants, the demand for rentals, and the quality of tenants has dramatically increased across the board. Like we're seeing all sorts of investors we work with. We have investors that are taking people out and interviewing them. They have the people come to the house.
Yeah.
They see the ones they like. Then they set up an interview with them. They meet them at Tim Hortons, back-to-back interviews. Then they decide based on the interview who they're going to select.
Yeah.
5 years ago, that type of stuff didn't happen because you're just like, hey, I need a tenant. Like
Correct.
it wasn't like you put anyone in the house, but the demand wasn't as high as it is because mortgage qualification was easier. So the flip side is that. And then it was another member actually. I won't mention his name because I don't have, you might know him from past VIP stuff, but he he's like, yeah, in my houses now, he goes, I'm looking at liquidating a couple properties. He's retired, and he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to sell off a couple to now cash out and take his money and enjoy retirement a little bit. So that's his plan, right? But he's like, how do you sell off assets when like your tenants are good, they pay on time, this money keeps coming in? He goes, it's kind of hard to get rid of one.
Yeah, how do you convince yourself?
Yeah, where he's like, in the past I had a little bit of tenant issues. Now they're just they're thankful that they have a place, because
especially after years, your mortgage might be paid down on these assets. Yeah, kind of like the rent you're getting is almost all cash flow.
And if you push out, even if the mortgage is paid down a percentage, and if you push out the amortization back to what it was, you can jump the cash flow numbers up pretty big.
And if you treat your tenants like the house that I'm going through the reno, 3 of my 6 students actually want to stay because they want first dip once it's renovated. It's renovated because they really like the landlording, we'll say, and just how things were done. So, they're gonna carry over my mortgage while the renos are happening.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think it's valuable to treat your tenant. When we see some investors shoot themselves in the foot because they are so set in stone with the way they're going to do things. Yeah, not really. Sometimes just not, in my opinion, not treating people very well. Not really treating people.
I see it. I go to those calls. Yeah. I listen to you guys, and I'm like, I just want to answer those police questions you guys all have. But yeah, I see it all the time. Yeah. You see the slumlords, and you see the 2% of bad people that all you hear about is
and I'm like, and those people, like, they deserve the bad things that are happening to them, but for the most part, when you treat people right, I generally find it makes a difference. We've always tried to take that approach, and we've never really had any major problems. I'll knock on wood, of course. Hey, look, sooner or later, in any business that you're in, whether it's real estate investing, any business, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be problems that come your way. So you're going to have to deal with some of them, right?
For sure.
But nothing's perfect. But I mean, overall, you can mitigate those.
Like the problems in perspective. In perspective to life, like that's how I see it. To the work that I used to do or I'm about to go back to, it's not that bad. Taking calls because of whatever.
No, it's kind of comical. It's just at the time, if you're in an emotional state when that call comes in, right?
I get it. I got the call where the leak is happening, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, but why the heck am I dealing with this?
Once you do it a few times, though, it comes with time. You're like, okay, well, I got this. I got my system in place. It's been tested a million times because, it breaks all the time.
The cortisol levels don't shoot up as much,
Not as much.
I remember one property, I think I was at Boxing Day, and I was at my son's hockey tournament in Niagara-on-the-Lake somewhere, and they called, I think there's an Oakville rental, and they called because there was the water tank dump, or no, sewage was backing up in that house. And on Boxing Day, I've now learned you can't call any Roto-Rooter place and get them there. Like Boxing, of all days to get somebody, I guess Christmas Day, Boxing Day, no one's around. And that was a little bit of like, here I am at a hockey rink wanting to watch my son, but I'm on the phone dealing with this kind of thing. 10 years ago, that would probably threw me for a loop for days. But now it's just like you almost are like, yep. It's just part of business. Deal with this. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, unless you're the handy person anyways that's going there to fix it. Yeah. Which I'm not.
No.
Well, why am I being bothered?
I remember one dad was walking into the arena. He's like, hey, how's it going? And I was on hold. I'm like, I'm just dealing with, there's a bunch of shit backing up in one of my properties over here. Just dealing with that right now. He just looks at me like,
well, I got your story. I think it was you, Nick, from your early career in this real estate where you had to like jump and grab the crap. Was that Tom?
That's Tom's story.
Okay,
but it's Tom's story about me.
You.
Oh yeah, Tom's got all sorts of stories about me.
Correct.
He'll tell you his version, then I'll tell you a little bit of a watered down one that's more accurate.
No, my version's 100%
When I listen to those things, it's perspective. Like my little water leak ain't that bad compared to you jumping in to grab the crap. Like perspective, and that's how I convince myself that it's not that bad. And then you.
Listen, to this day, I don't know anyone who's owned property for over 10 years and regrets it. Haven't met that person. I literally have not met a person who's owned property. I've met people who've owned property for like 2 years, and they're like, I sold it, I lost some money, worst thing I ever did. I've met those people, and they're usually trying to flip a property or time the market, doesn't go their way, they're all upset. But if they go in with the right perspective, I've literally never met a person who after 10 years, 10 years or longer, who said, that was actually a really bad move.
It's usually the opposite. It's usually like, that's actually the best thing I did.
Yeah, right? It's like 10 years ago, I should have bought more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I just want to address something you're saying. To your point, the way that the Canadian government is changing the mortgage qualification rules that are making it harder for all of us to buy properties as investments. Yeah, it's as painful as it is for yourself and us to do that. just think of the first-time home buyer who has to qualify now at much harder circumstances than we had to. I mean, when I bought my first home, I don't know, I felt like I just walked into the bank and said, I don't know, here's like my pay
I have
stub.
a pulse.
Yeah,
Can
I
I
have
get
a
a
pay stub,
mortgage?
and can you get me something? And they're like, oh, sure. Do you want to use your RRSPs?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess.
My first house was a 40-year mortgage, though. Like,
40-year amortization.
That's when I started it was 40 years,
Yeah.
then 2 years later they stopped. Then they brought it down to 35, 30, 25 now if you don't have the 20% down. But 40 years, crazy.
And then, so I just want to continue on your story because you then did you do some Airbnb stuff as well? Temporarily
Personal,
for a small
correct.
period of time?
So I had my house in Milton. I was living in it by myself. It was a nice place, brand new. So I think was it last fall? I believe you had somebody at the conference, sort of. I'm not sure which event, but somebody there was talking about Airbnb, so I gave it a try. But I was in Milton, so I didn't expect much traffic.
Yeah.
I was booked 95% of the time, I would say.
This is for your home. Were you renting out space in your home? Like
So I
rooms,
had
or-
so when I was let's say I was in Toronto while I was working. I was traveling back to Montreal or Ottawa on my days off. So when I was working, I was renting the room. When I was away, let's say for a weekend, I was renting the whole house.
Got it.
I had no kids living there anymore. They had moved away. I wouldn't have not done that with my family inside the house, but with no kids, yeah, it worked perfectly.
And you
I
were
had
renting it out at 95% of the time that you were
Yeah.
allowing it to be rented out?
yeah, all the time.
And
Who rented a place up in Milton? Like for what? Do you know? Or
That was my question. Who's
Yeah.
coming here?
Yeah.
But you know what? I right now I'm staying at a hotel in Milton because I drove from Ottawa. I don't
so
live here
you
anymore.
might be the person.
Well, like the hotel is $150 a night, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was only charging 30, 40, $50 a night maybe. And
Yeah.
and I had a hot tub. I mean the house was like fantastic. Like
You
brand-
charge $30-$40 a night for the whole house?
for that one room.
Oh,
no,
okay.
the house was $100 a night or
But
something
even
like
still,
that.
yeah,
It's-
yeah.
You gotta. It was a good deal for them, but it was a
Yeah.
good deal for me
So
too.
you
It worked both ways. So I had a kid from Ukraine that came for a month and a half.
what was the kid from Ukraine doing here?
Study,
School,
work
okay.
visa.
Got it. Okay.
He was in between residence of school and getting his apartment with his buddy. So he needed 2 months
Okay,
of, and
makes
it's
sense.
cheaper to come to my house than going to a hotel, I guess.
Plus, you have the hot tub.
And I have the hot tub.
Yeah.
That was a big selling point for sure. And then I had a lady coming from from here. I had a dude from Germany. I had a couple from Montreal. I had
Alta Milton, Ontario.
yeah.
This is the shocking thing
It's
about it
crazy, yeah.
because we hear these stories about Airbnb, but we thought it was a Toronto condo thing.
Me too.
We literally hear it all the way to Welland, Ontario.
Yeah,
where
but
people.
again, perspective, correct? Like Milton literally sits though between Toronto and Niagara Falls or St. Catharines or the wine country. So that's how I was selling my property. Said I'm literally 45 minutes one way or 45 minutes the other way, because people are visiting.
That's funny that you were selling Milton as central.
I know.
Central. In Milton, you are central.
But people
if
that
you
don't
want to go
live
to
here-
Niagara Falls, you are the CN Tower.
It is. It is. If you're not from here, it looks central.
Yeah.
You
No,
go down to Oakville, hit the QW, and boom, you're either.
no, you're right. Like when you describe it that way, you're right. I just am always shocked. To this day, we have people coming in talking to us about Airbnb, and it just kind of surprises us.
Yeah, we bought the new house in Ottawa, and
So you now moved to So you moved to Ottawa.
correct. We moved to Ottawa, and the house is set up to have an Airbnb part in it. It has like an in-law suite, a huge, close to 1,000 square foot apartment attached to the house.
Okay, so now you got to tell me this transition because you gave up being a Toronto police officer
Correct.
now, right?
Okay.
So why the transition?
Thank you. Well, when I separated, my first lady was from Montreal, so she moved back to Montreal with my son, which was kind of an issue.
Okay, so you want to be close.
So I want to be close,
okay.
correct. So this is what I've been working for the last 4 years, is to get back
cool.
closer to my kids.
Okay, so this is all a goal to get you
Correct.
back.
All this rock star, everything here is because of my son. My
Awesome.
oldest at the time.
Awesome.
Now I got 2, but I live
Okay.
with the second one.
But most people are going to say you're crazy because it's a good job. Well, some people might argue if it's a good job, but a Toronto police officer, I know people want. I know
It pays
people
well.
who
It's a
want to
good
become
job.
police officers. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you
And you're
gave
giving up seniority now too, right? Which matters when you're on the police force, I think, right?
For your holidays mainly, just your
Okay.
holidays.
Okay, so-
I mean, when we last spoke, I had retired. I gave my
Yeah,
resignation.
that day I spoke to you, you were going next to
I
giving your
did.
badge.
So that was a tough day. I'm not gonna lie, Tom. So I did that. I went and dropped my gun off. my badge, my uniform, and I can show you my wallet's empty right now. Like there's a space where the badge used to be that it's just empty.
Keep that though, because if you get pulled over for speeding, you
yeah.
can still use that wallet
Yeah,
even though
so
it's empty.
I used to.
Yeah. Look, I was a cop.
So that was a tough day. I'm not gonna lie, like a bit emotional, and again, putting back in perspective, a month ago, I went on holidays. I haven't worked since March 1st. So I took all my holidays. I went to Jamaica. I just didn't want to go back to work. I spent the first week of March or the second week of March in Montreal volunteering at my son's school and bringing classes skating. So I would have never been able to do that as a full-time officer in Toronto. And it just convinced me that was it, because I hadn't resigned yet, and I've been struggling. I had struggled with this for 6 months. Like, resign. I need my job. I need my T4s to buy houses. It's like, so finally I pulled the plug. I pulled my pension. I just cashed out my 14 years that I have accumulated. But the good news is that last Thursday, Ottawa police called me and offered me a position. So I'm going to take it.
Crazy.
So I'm going to go back to policing, but in Ottawa.
So it's going to work out just almost like you planned it.
Exactly. Like, I was planning things for the worst. I'm a worst case scenario kind of guy. So having a job is not easy, but like life is, you got a job, you get your steady paycheck, you're good to go. Not having a job was my struggle. Like, what was I going to do? And that's why I started doing all this, surrounding myself. Like, I don't understand yet how you live your life through a business and like pay yourself. Like,
it's weird.
Yeah.
Now it's normal, but at first it was weird.
Yeah, it's just this weird thing. So
we didn't. But for the record, we didn't even pay ourselves through the business. We paid ourselves through a credit line that we had on my personal residence. Nick, how much money do you need?
Okay, you're lucky you're still married. Really, you got great wives.
Our wives are. Yes, I tell Carol that repeatedly now, because I look back, I'm like, holy shit, like, you really put up with a lot.
But it's a huge source of motivation, because your story of your both story of quitting the corporation world. You had a kid. You were about the other way around. You had a kid.
Kids.
You were about to get one. Or
I was about to get married. I was just about to get married.
Like, it's such a tough time in your life to quit it all, correct? Like, at least I got security and I got houses. Quitting my job is stressful, but not as stressful as probably when you have a brand new kid.
Yeah, it was definitely more stressful for him than me, because worst case scenario with no kids, I was like, well, whatever. If I need to work at the corner gas station, I'll just get a job. If I need, I was like a well-bodied male, strong enough that I could do like labor. If I need to go do landscaping, like
you can provide.
That's what I mean. If I need to do it, and I have work ethic, so I don't mind. Like, I'll do labor, right? So I'm like, worst case scenario, if I have to get one of those jobs, I'll make things will work out. But with the kids, knowing what I know now, because now I have kids. Yeah, Tom, you're crazy. What's wrong with you?
The weird part is,
but it helped me, because when I was going through this last couple months of like, I'm like, you know what? Tom did it. We're good. Like, literally. And then nothing to say that, it's easy, you should have done it and bringing you down. It's just like, it's my motivation. If you're able to, I'm going to follow suit. Who's quitting a 6-figure job? Like, who does that?
Tom, and if he was able to do it, how could you not?
This guy, listen, man, if anyone's listening to this and I can do it, then you can do it.
But that's how I see it. And it's not, it's a good thing, So I took that very highly, and I look at what you did, and I'm like, I'm going to try the same thing. Not to this scale. Like, I wouldn't be interested in running a rock star. I think this is too much work.
But look what you've done. I mean, you've gone out. You didn't know anything about real estate investing.
No.
You did all the due diligence. You even join up with us, but you spend a year figuring things out to get comfortable with it. Yeah. You probably got to yourself to 80% comfort level. The last 20%, Mark Greenidge on our team probably had to push you a little bit and say,
for sure.
I got you.
My stress was to tenants. Like, I'm like, what if I don't find tenants? Like, that's what I
course.
didn't understand. I'm like,
that's the number one thing
number
we get.
one, it's a vacancy. What if I don't find
I couldn't get over that.
And then the next
I'm like,
thing
but Mark, like, how am I? What if they're like 3 months? And I was frightened.
And how's your worry now about finding tenants?
I don't.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
You're renting a garage out.
I know.
And then so that, and then damage. That's another thing. What if people move in? And I'm like, look, listen. If someone takes a sledgehammer and starts going through your property, that's actually like a criminal offense now at this point. Like, they're damaging this thing, and it's your property that they're damaging.
Absolutely.
So
and there's insurance policies that you can get if you're really super like. like that's your like, look, I just can't get over this.
Yeah.
It's not much more. There's certain insurance companies that will cover damages by the tenant. Like now there's a deductible. It can't be like, hey, they made one hole in my wall, you call insurance and they come and patch it up, right?
But if you have a good relationship, like I have my students that they broke stuff, but we have this really, like they tell me, they fix it, or
Totally,
like
that's how it should be.
and it's okay. Like I don't get mad. They're students, they're gonna drink, as long as there's no bouncer in front of the door, no party crazy, it's okay, they're gonna smoke dope. It is what it is. Like, what am I gonna say?
Well, now in Canada especially,
well,
it
now
is what
it's
it
legal,
is.
but let's say 7 months ago it wasn't. They were still smoking dope. Like, so you could try to control it instead of just, I listen to people that like they try to be very strict, and obviously like go back to when I was 20. You told me not to.
You're gonna do it
Yeah,
anyway.
Guess what
You're
I'm
gonna double
doing?
down.
Absolutely.
We had one problem. It was actually by Mohawk, one of the places by Mohawk, and they were partying a little bit, but they weren't really damaging the house, and it was dirty, but nothing that like a set of cleaners threw for one day wouldn't fix. You know,
Yeah.
but when I went in, I was like, this is kind of gross. Like I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah.
But then eventually we got a call from one of the neighbors. This was pretty much the only kind of
Oh, yeah.
behavioral issue
Wasn't
we've
some
had to
guy
deal
like-
with in all the years. And we got a call from one of the neighbors,
had a
just saying
party.
they're just saying they like it was regular, and they were just being loud. So we had
Yeah.
to kind of have.
Didn't one guy
and
like
the cops
urinate
came.
on the neighbor's car?
No, I don't think
No?
so. That wasn't us. That rings a bell, but I don't think it was.
Okay.
It might be
Go
for another
back to your
investor.
20s. I can tell you a lot of those stories
Yeah.
for ourselves, correct?
Yeah.
Like,
But
and
we-
that's why I try to be cool. Like I treat the 20s like an adult, because I did not like to be treated like a 20-year-old, even though
I
they
agree.
are.
I
With
agree.
respect.
I agree
I
completely.
give them respect. And
So when this particular example, when we spoke to them, so I went and spoke to them, or maybe I just emailed them. I don't even think I spoke to them. I think when I was down there for something else and I mentioned it again, and they toned it down. They still had people over. They toned it down. And that was pretty much the end of it. I think I might actually got 2 calls from the neighbors, and I talked to them, and that was the end of it. It wasn't a big deal. It didn't end up being a big deal at all.
no.
Because I agree with you. Like, if you treat them like they're like, if you try to lock them into all these rules, I
not gonna
agree
work.
completely. Because when I was that age, I'm like, yeah, you think you're gonna
Yeah.
hold me down? All right.
Me too.
Out of spite, I'm gonna do something else.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. So you control it. I control it instead, So let's say prior to the dope smoking, they were smoking. It's a control. Do it there. I created a little overhang Porsche for them, so it wasn't inside. But now they have protection outside. Correct. So I know they're gonna do it.
Did they know you were a police officer?
Oh yeah.
Okay, got it.
Correct. But I mean,
No, it's just funny to me.
nobody
It's
has
just funny.
cared about
Yeah.
weed for
the
No,
inside of a car.
I know. It's just funny. That's all. But
unless it's the impaired driving, maybe. But
that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
different.
got it.
other than that, I rather deal with potheads than drunks.
yeah, totally.
One thing that I'll purposely do when I'm showing to a new set of kids, I'll make comments like, oh yeah, so there's a porch out here. So yeah, I don't know if if you do smoke any weed or something, you can, because then they'll tell me now.
They'll
now it's
volunteer it
legal,
up.
but they'll be like, oh, okay, cool, and they'll tell me, because then they think they can talk to me about it, and it gives me a heads up. I'm like, okay, so now I know that they're pot smokers,
Yeah.
or because I'll be like, yeah, guys, the last set of girls had all these vodka bottles all lined up here. I don't know if you're into the vodka or something else, and some of them are like, no, we're not really drinkers. Some are like, oh no, it's rye for me, and I'm like, the last thing I want is a
Take
bunch of guys that
notes.
are pounding back rye.
Yeah,
in the
that's
house, right?
dangerous.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're
So-
drinking rye in
Yeah.
university?
Yeah, that gets that's bad
So
news.
so I'll purposely drop lines when showing the properties to try to get
For
them
some
to
reason,
see
I was
what's
just thinking
happening.
cocaine when you said that. I'll purposely drop some lines.
Oh no,
But,
no. I want to be very clear.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
No, but it's a good way, and for me, it worked out. You treat them with respect, and through my job, that's what I've learned. Correct. Like I deal with people from the street, homeless. I mean, name them, and that's all they want. They just want to be treated with respect, and respect
that's interesting.
brings so much results. Correct. Because I could go on let's say for my job, I can go on the street and crack skull and be rough, but you're not going anywhere with that. Where if you treat that, I look at those people I got to deal with. I don't envy anybody. And again, that little respect brings me so much information back, like the intel in that world. And it's the same thing for real estate. That respect to my young students has paid back. I have a set of students, which is rare for college. This is their 3rd years. They're inside the same house.
yeah, that is rare for college. For
It
sure.
is.
Yeah.
And they're not moving, and they don't want to go, and they're done college right now actually, and they're still in
They
there.
want to stay, yeah,
They
because it's
don't
so
wanna
hard to
go.
listen. We know someone on our own team is looking to rent a place, and yeah, it's hard to find.
It is.
You mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to dispel a little bit of a myth. You said, how do investors buy all these properties because the banks start making it really difficult for you and stuff? And you're 100% accurate. When you see people who are buying a ton of properties, they usually are getting someone else to go on title. So like a uncle, cousin, best friend,
Yeah.
and then they advertise it out. And no, this is not wrong, so I'm not saying anything, but they'll say, hey, I'm buying all these properties, but really behind the scenes, there
know.
typically is some other
I'm getting
money.
that now
Yeah,
because
so-
I'm like, how do you own 25 properties? I'm like, it's impossible.
And then there is a second phase as a real estate investor, which will hit you at some point. It's a really good phase. And it's a frustrating phase at first, because once you buy a bit of property and then you cap out whatever you're capping out at, you want to buy more, but you can't do anything because you don't have the down payments, you don't qualify anymore. But over some period of time, and it usually happens faster than you think, you forget about your properties a little bit, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I have some equity in here. And then you can tap into those properties as the down payment, and you can usually navigate around the income requirements in some way, shape, or form.
Correct.
With some, okay, this bank is now giving me more recognition of my leases and looking not at 50% of the value of the leases, but more.
See, this is where I wish they would have that one set of rules for every bank, because I'm so tired of shopping. Like, one bank looks at all my houses and don't recognize any of them as rentals, so my ratio obviously makes no sense. Like, according to that bank, I can't afford to have dinner.
Yeah.
There's 4 mortgages. It makes
you
no
just
sense.
have so much debt.
But then the next bank is fine. And I'm like, just work with one set of rules so
It's
I can
unfortunate
understand the rules.
but the only upside to that I try to tell myself, because we go through the same frustration, is that I look at it as a competitive advantage, because I'm like, you know what? No one else is going to quarterback like I'll quarterback.
Yeah.
So I'll make the effort. I'll find the mortgage brokers. I'll find the bankers. I'll find the network of people who know what's going on.
Correct.
And it'll give, if I bust through it, no one else is going to do it, so I will competitively have an advantage because I'm going to put in the effort to figure out this banking situation. And no one's going to no one's going to quarterback it for you. And the Canadian banking rules change. It feels
Every
like
day.
almost, it feels like
so
it's constant.
Yeah.
So it's a real pain. But there is going to be that point when you've owned real estate for some time where the world opens up, because RBC, I'll never forget, for a long time told us 6 properties, guys. Sorry, 6 properties. With us anyway. I think it was with RBC or whatever their rule was. And then after a while, I guess 10, 15 years go by, we have some property. Our financial statement looks a little different, right? And then one RBC guy's like, oh, that's not a problem, 6 properties. Who told you that? You know, with your financial statements,
we can
guys,
make an exception. We can make an exception. We
I can
can't
get an
make 5
exception approval.
exceptions, but for that particular rule, we can make an exception. So they're always
And
willing.
so we
to-
were like, whoa, hold on a second. So this rule's really only just kind of, sort of. And then, you know, if you want to make an exception, some
But
VP,
it's so frustrating to navigate. And
So
again, thank God I
frustrating.
use
That
people
is
now
true.
that I've met through this group, because I don't want this headache. Like, it's literally my only anxiety from real estate is applying for a mortgage.
Totally.
I
All of
agree.
us.
That's it.
The banks.
I couldn't care less. I could deal with tenants, issues,
and
leaks.
closing, because sometimes at closing the banks are like, we now want this.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind, we want this. And one time we had to get, I'll never forget, we had to get a phone statement. This is when we first started. We're using some voice over IP line when those were out, and we needed something specific to a specific phone number for one of the businesses, a bill with that specific phone number and this specific business name, but it didn't really exist that way because it was under someone else's name. And for some reason, without that, we couldn't close. I remember having to like call people. I had to drive it to Brantford to the lawyer
Your
that
heart
day.
goes crazy.
Oh.
And I'm like, for what? For a bill to the phone number to
Yeah.
show that it's under the company? Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you even talking about?
I know,
Right?
so-
Ridiculous stuff.
That's the only portion I really dislike about real estate. Other than that, everything else I can deal with.
And the lawyers. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. We have good lawyer friends. I'm totally joking. I just like making fun of lawyers.
Oh, I hate lawyers too. It's okay.
Oh my God! In your line of work, I can only imagine.
yeah,
I deal with lawyers all
No,
the time.
you know what? And all joking aside, the lawyers we met over the years have been really, really good. And you do need good lawyers.
You do.
You need, you need them.
You need good
But I do-
banking people.
But I knew we would get along. You make fun of lawyers too. The Habs thing we can work on.
I will work on
We
it.
can work on the
We'll
Habs
work
thing.
on
You
it.
know.
So, are you going to cheer for the Senators now?
No.
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 If you had to choose, if you had to cheer for the Senators or the Leafs, who would you choose?
There's only one right answer.
Well, I
There's
know, but you're
only-
not gonna like my answer.
No way.
So Senators.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. My nephews
Andre.
live there. They're like
Oh,
Sparty Cat
God.
fan, and
Oh God.
I know they're horrible. I mean, they make the Habs look like a Stanley Cup team.
God.
Right now, it's a pretty
Oh, it
right
is.
now
It's
they've
a
taken
tough
some
time.
management lessons from the Leafs 10 years ago. It looks like a pretty dysfunctional team.
So now you're out in Ottawa. What's next? You have some. You're going to keep your properties out here. I
have
assume.
kept my properties.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm just not learning, but I'm continuing my education about running my own running my properties myself. Super fun.
You're going to manage the renovations, I guess, a bit remotely. and stuff?
Exactly.
You know all the people.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So I met everybody I had to in the last 4 years. That was my goal. I just had to meet all my network.
So you have your team basically.
I heard water somewhere. There it is. So I have my team, and it's managed from a distance. Like I said, I've pulled out my pension that I've accumulated. I'm going to start a new one when I start back next month, and I'm going to do something with that. I've met a couple people. I'd like to get into like private money lending maybe, or something like that.
That's another thing that Nick and I didn't hear about for many years until one lawyer or accountant told us, oh yeah, like all lawyers and accountants are lending out money privately to people. That's basically how they all make their money. They are private money lenders. And I was like, really? Like no one. I thought it was just the public stock market that
because
people
it sounds like shark. What's that word?
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a scam.
Yeah. Like what, you get, really? Okay.
But it's really not like.
No.
And some of the examples
I've
heard,
used it. I've used hard money.
And one of the examples one lawyer was telling me, he's like, look, I had a dentist who the bank thinks he's over leveraged because he started a new practice. He signed a commercial lease. He bought a bunch of equipment. He's growing rapidly. He could use some more expansion, some more chairs. He can't get the funding for it. I lend him a bunch of money secured against some equity in his home.
Yeah.
No risk really for the lender. The dentist is really happy to be able to extend the business.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, like, yeah, this is a whole world I didn't even know about.
No, meaning I'm just discovering this one. So I'm reading a lot of people. I've met a few Rockstar members that have gone through this before me, and they're helping me out. I'm just waiting for my paperwork right now.
The next journey begins. Did you buy in Ottawa? You renting it? What are you doing in Ottawa?
No, I bought just outside east, maybe 30 minutes. There's a huge water park named Calypso Water Park. I'm 4 kilometers from that.
Cool.
The house sits on 1 acre of land. It's like,
it's got the Airbnb second suite.
I'm not Airbnb-ing it. It's really made for guests. We just want guests. We love having people over. We have the property too. All we do, there's a pool there. We have the fireplace. There's a wooded area at the end of my line. Like there's maybe a 30 feet of wooded area, and then there's a cornfield behind. So no, just guests, family, friends.
Awesome. Good for you, man. What a journey. And now joining up with the Ottawa Police Force.
Yeah, so I'm actually in town for that. I had to go see my doctor, do my physical. They gave me an offer 5 days ago, and I should actually be starting May 13.
Cool. You're closer to your son.
Yes, that's all.
That's
really,
cool.
that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
Like I have a great relationship with my ex, my new girl. Like everybody, finally it works out.
That's nice. Yeah.
It is. It's a hard work in progress, but after all those years, it paid off finally. So I'm super happy, and a testament to you folks. Even though I'm 6 hours away, I'm still a rock star guy. I'm not going anywhere.
I can't believe it. You're here for the VIP class.
I'm here
tomorrow.
for the VIP tomorrow.
Yeah.
But this is fun because I've never been this business guy. So now I actually came. I rented a hotel room, an introduction. I'm here for business. I'm gonna do your thing tomorrow, and then I'm gonna shoot back home.
Yeah, awesome.
And I'll come back. The next event. I can't make it the May event because I start the Monday. So unfortunately, I can't be there for the.
That's okay. We're going to be around. You know where to find us.
Did you keep your place in Milton too, or did you sell that one?
No, I sold
that one for the Ottawa.
That's how I made it. Yeah,
to the Ottawa. Yeah,
so
okay, I gotcha.
That's how I'm making the transition.
I was just curious. The reason I was asking, I was like, is that going to go full time Airbnb or not? That's why I was going to ask.
I thought about it, Nick. I want every time you sell a house, you're like, I should have kept it. I know I should have kept. Like I told myself a year ago, I'm going to sell it. And I should have kept it. But
your family needs a place.
But there's lifestyle.
Yes.
That's
your family needs a home.
You need it to move forward.
There's a lifestyle decision, like in the decisions we make for our investing too. There's a lifestyle factor that we take into account as well. Like, long time ago, we found someone that the numbers on this property were great. It was a building, and he was renting it out by the room, and the numbers on it looked tremendous.
In Mississauga on Lakeshore Road.
It was like a big rooming house. But we're like, man, like we just don't. First of all, who are you going to find to manage that? I don't even know, right? And then, what lifestyle do you have to lead to manage a rooming house in a multi-unit building? Like it's just a.
It was I think it was like 8 stories with like 12 units of floor, all by the room.
It was crazy.
I see them all the time.
Yeah.
I worked Parkdale the last 4 years. I mean, that's
so you see all sorts of
everywhere.
And we're like, so the lifestyle decision for us is like, well, we want to be investors, but we don't want to invest in that particular asset because we don't want to lead the lifestyle that it takes to manage that asset.
Yeah.
Right. Which is something to be said. So like if you're selling it because of you're like, well, the life I want to lead with my family and that's going to get me there. That makes perfect sense. Right.
I've always used my personal home to just bring me to the next personal home.
Yeah.
Like
totally.
I don't use it for my business. Everything else is, I have 3 houses. I can still refi. Like the business is fine. My personal house. I was thinking about it. Like I was making, you play with the numbers. I'm like, if I fill it only 70%, I'll make X amount.
Yeah.
but then how do I buy the next house to go live in? Because you need the down payment, and that's
And qualifying now is harder. Everything,
yeah,
right?
because that's one extra house onto your ratio. So I had to sell it. I know in the long term I'm going to lose. I should have kept it.
Yeah, but we all say. I mean,
But
looking
it's
back,
bringing me
what
to the
did
next
all the
one.
things? Yeah,
You know, and
that's.
Yeah,
And what price do you pay on putting a nice home closer to your son? Do you know what I mean? There's not much. There's not a price there, right? That's what I mean.
Nothing.
Yeah.
He was over for the weekend. It's literally an hour, and I'm in Montreal.
Yeah,
like
that's
an
cool.
hour. It's like
That's
going
cool.
to work and coming back.
Yeah.
I get my son now.
In 4 years, you've done a shitload, man. So
Well,
congratulations.
it's because of you guys, to be honest.
No,
It's
yeah,
like,
thank you.
Thank you
but
very much for you folks.
I totally we appreciate that. But you were crazy enough to take the risk and to go into this world. Real
I'm all
estate-
in, Nick.
Yeah.
Tom, every time I'm all in.
Yeah.
That's the best thing
I'm
about
so
me.
grateful that we've crossed paths, and thanks for sharing your story like
No,
this.
thank you
Really,
very much for
really.
having me. This is actually an honor. I was telling you, I think before the show, I was like, when you first started the podcast, I was telling my coach, I'm like, one day this is it. Like, this was my
Oh,
goal.
man,
I'm
we're-
going to
yeah,
make
yeah,
it to this
two-way
office
street, man. Two-way
and do
street.
an interview. So thank you very much for having me. This has been the best 4 years of my life. My dad loved it when he came. He wished
That
he
was
had
so
this.
cool that your
He
dad
actually
came
wished
out.
he had this when he was younger. Just to finish off, we used to live in a triplex. He had a triplex all his life.
Wow.
It's just not the mindset, finance, the 90s, the 80s, all those years. So that got sold. My grandmother just sold her fourplex that my grandfather built in the 40s or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
In
that's-
Montreal.
That's how she lived because he died 25 years ago.
So she lived off that.
She lived off that. But nobody in the family followed suit. Like, that's where it blows my mind.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, she's 95. She's still alive. She just sold it. She cashed in, paid for it. Grandfather built it. I have the blueprints of the house.
And it was built in the 40s?
Yeah.
Wow, good
Yeah,
for her.
on the island, and again, it opens up your mind. I'm like, what if this lady's living till 95
Totally.
off of those rents?
It's not a mystery.
Off
yeah.
one, the thing that
One house.
yeah, that's the crazy thing. But you know how we talked, Tom? You said no one, and I know we want to wrap up, but you said no one regrets it in 10 years. I have this one slide that I go over in the Fast Start class, and it's like the power of one property. Because I don't really talk about properties to my friends and stuff, but when they ask me now, I'm like, guys, look. One, because of the amount of time, if you hold on to one, the difference it can make in the retirement years or whatever is vast. That's
Crazy.
really interesting, man. One
Crazy.
property.
My
she lived off for all
grandmother
those years.
opened my eyes to that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, that's
she's
so
been
cool.
living. I mean, she's still there. 95. She's kicking.
Listen, to wrap this up, your grandmother and your father are allowed to be Habs fans. We have to work on it. Okay?
Not a problem. I'll work on it. I won't become a Sens fan. I know you guys in Ottawa and Toronto are like big. You guys don't like each other, so I'll stick to Montreal.
Yeah. I'll take Ottawa over Montreal, just like you'll take Ottawa. You'll take Ottawa over Toronto.
I'm actually surprised you're saying that because you guys hate Ottawa.
Habs,
Probably-
my you know what? My high school
you.
and grade school friends have scarred my soul with
So
with the
when I
Habs.
get my season's tickets, I will
to the
invite-
Bell Center, yeah, we'll come.
I'll invite. Okay, just making sure. I'll invite you guys for a Leafs game.
Thanks, Andre.
Awesome,
Appreciate
thank
this,
you.
man. Hey everyone, it's Tom. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Andre's just a great guy. We enjoyed a little bit of tequila on that episode, or he did. I was having a mushroom chaga tea while he was drinking some tequila. And anyway, if you are listening to this and you want to reach out to Andre, you can reach him. He was gracious enough to share his Facebook. I think it's a public profile. I'm not sure. I'll just say it. It's Andre Thomas is Andre on Facebook. So you can reach out to him that way if you'd like to communicate. That's it for us. If you're listening to this and you want to start your own journey and you come out to our free introductory training class, you can register and grab yourself a seat at CanadianRealEstateTraining.com. That's CanadianRealEstateTraining.com. Until next time, your life, your terms.